and welcome to the Your Success Personally podcast with your host, yours truly, Vanessa G, where we talk about success as defined by you. Here, we don't look at the playbook of others to bring you down. Instead, we are going to cover topics that pertain to how you, as an individual, can reach your goals and your potential. Don't look at others to define your success. You create it. Your rules, your way, and how you get there. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello again, and welcome back to the Your Success Personally podcast with your host, yours truly, Vanessa G. I am coming to you today, first and foremost, to just give a shout out to @NoniCeline, who is the one who has been helping me with the audio engineering and editing of this podcast. She has done a phenomenal job for which she's gotten paid for because she does really good work. And when you're a success or on your way to success, you want to be paid for a job well done. So I shout her out. You can find her on Instagram at @NoniCeline. And on top of that, she's a phenomenal singer in her own right. And you should definitely check out any tracks that you might find her on in the future. So with that said, I am coming to you today in this special episode to talk about coping in isolation. As of this recording, the world is experiencing a pandemic of the COVID-19 coronavirus. The coronavirus is not new. This COVID-19 is a new strain of coronavirus, which has existed and been around for a while. But this COVID-19 started in late 2019 and really spiraled and spread in China late 2019. And over the last few months has quickly spread, devastated China, really hit badly Italy, did damage in Spain, and has moved across the ocean to the United States and to the New York City area, really making New York City the epicenter of the virus in the United States at one time. To date, there are well over 1 million cases in this country, and now the virus is running rampant in the southern and southwestern states. The country is really seeing a spike right now, and I'm not sure if it's because people have felt cooped up in their homes too long. And part of that, being quarantined, required that the governments enacted what they call social distancing. And the Wikipedia definition of social distancing is a set of non-pharmaceutical interventions or measures taken to prevent the spread of a contagious disease by maintaining a physical distance between people and reducing the number of times people come in close contact with each other. So the CDC and other experts, health experts, have advised staying away from other people at a distance of at least 6 feet. Also, the CDC has strongly suggested that people practice good hygiene by coughing or sneezing into one's own arm or elbow and washing your hands thoroughly with soap and water after using the bathroom. Common sense, I would think, but you'd be surprised how many didn't take heed of that practice pre-corona. So again, practicing good hygiene and common courtesy are being used to deal with this virus. And, it has been heartbreaking to hear about the numerous deaths that this virus has caused. This virus has not discriminated based on anything, not on race, gender, social status, from the youngest to the oldest. This virus has touched and really taken quite a number of people. I thank God that I am not infected and my family has so far been spared. But this situation has certainly cost thousands of people their lives. And unfortunately, experts predict that there will yet be more that will succumb to this virus. So, when quarantines were enacted back in early to mid-March of this year, many companies, many state, local, and federal agencies had literally shut down offices, and many people went into 100% working at home. My agency also went into 100% telework, and it was the case for many agencies. But then there were those who were put in difficult positions because they had been laid off and were struggling, and some yet still struggling to make ends meet. We are living in some devastating times. The number of people dying, and not just dying, but dying alone. Hospitals had not allowed for a number of months for any visitors of the sick. So people died without contact with their loved ones. And unfortunately, earlier on, they did not even have an appropriate funeral to be able to lay their loved ones to rest. And then there was the rest of us. There were people with small children who had to take up the role of principal and teacher in their homes, navigating work with a spouse in their homes. And then you had single people who were living alone and found themselves feeling lonely, scared, and probably wondering what their lives would be like without a human connection. So we are experiencing truly devastating times. And we are now, at least in my neck of the woods, beginning to enter into stages of reopening in this country. And dare I say that maybe some places reopen too fast, but nevertheless, some places are entering into stages of reopening in the country. Yet there are still so many of us still in isolation, and because of the fact that across the country there continues to be spikes in different states, the virus is still spreading. So even with reopening, we're not even sure if that will last. My friends, we really don't have an idea about how life will look like until this pandemic is over or when the virus has run its course. Then finally, something else to consider is that there's a possibility that there would be a second wave of this virus. So we find ourselves in a pandemic, having to deal with national unrest. I don't know that there isn't anyone that hasn't heard about or been exposed to some sort of media surrounding the deaths of unarmed African American people, such as George Floyd and others, Breonna Taylor, just to name a couple. And really, racial unrest has been a part of this nation's history for such a long time. And for such a long time, despite protests, so many have not gotten the message that Black lives matter. And now it seems that people are not willing to sit down. People are continuing to stand up. People, and actually more people than ever before, are finally starting to realize the importance of Black lives. And, the struggle continues until laws have changed. until systemic ways that the police departments across the country look at African American men and women start to change. When that happens, then maybe we'll start to see some real healing. That's why there's so many advocates on voting. But the images of these assaults on African American people, on Black people, are so cruel and so hurtful. And so we continually live in a state of unrest. And it really needs to be unrest until this situation is solved. But with all that said, with the pandemic and what it could mean for our life and for African American people and the racism that exists against us and what it can mean for our lives, how do you cope, especially being in isolation? My thoughts, I'll tell you that based on my faith, we are in need of God now more than ever. There are some basic self-care tips that I plan to share with you in order to promote success in life. But right now, I really just want to focus in on how we can cope in isolation. And even though some of the businesses and government is starting to reopen, many of us will still continue to be at home until this viral situation has been taken under control. So here are just a few tips to how to cope in isolation, especially in these times. First one, stay informed, not obsessed. Stay informed, not obsessed. And, you can't know what's going on unless you watch the news. But as you turn on to the news channel, learn to have a discerning spirit about it. As a responsible human being, you should want to hear about what the government is speaking as to how we're to conduct ourselves in local communities. That is what you need to know, and you may want to hear about what's happening in other parts of the country. Maybe you have family in another part of the country where the virus is spiking, and that's okay. You want the highlights, but the one thing you don't want to do is become obsessed with the news. Experiencing this pandemic is unprecedented in these times. There were plagues in centuries past, for sure, but no one expected this to happen in this modern era. But what we need to understand is that there is such a thing as sensory overload. Constant intake of negative information and fearful information only produces negative fear. Decide to take in only what is pertinent and relevant to know, and then shut it down. Shut it down. Oftentimes, different news channels are just recycling the same news you watched on a different channel or even earlier in the day. So give yourself a rest and give yourself a rest and take some time to do something else, something pleasant, and just shut it down. My next tip would be to unplug and de-stress. Right? You want to unplug and de-stress. And after getting all the essential information, after you've considered turning off the news, allow yourself to listen to something else. Try tuning in to some of your favorite music, or your favorite podcast like mine. Think about other activities that you enjoy that when you do them, you feel happy and it lifts your mood. And this could be even taking a hot bath, reading a book, exercising. Do a Zoom call with a group of friends. Try a hobby that maybe pre-pandemic you didn't have an opportunity to try. When we de-stress, it is just like what the word says. We are taking stress out of the situation by putting our minds and really having a focus on things that aren't contributing to your already negative or depressed mood. And it isn't an invitation to make yourself busy or to do busy work, because doing busy work could lead to exertion of energy that leaves you tired and not necessarily refreshed. But sometimes taking on projects like doing gardening or a light reno project like painting a room or something around the house that needs to be done, those sort of things sometimes have a positive impact where you have a sense of accomplishment after you've done it. But again, you decide, as long as it's something that feels fun, rewarding, and relaxes you. Finally, my last self-care tip in how to cope in isolation and unrest is to stay connected. Tune out from the media updates and tune into the people you are connected to. See, I mentioned it before, but calling family and friends can be quite therapeutic and decrease those feelings of isolation. There are so many modes and methods of communication out there. I don't really have to mention it, but I will. FaceTime, WhatsApp, use a telephone if anybody has a regular telephone anymore. Video chats, text messages, you name it, email, it's out there. Humans were not created for isolation. Wonder how I know? If people were to be alone, there would have only been one man created and no more. Men and women were created for procreation and connection. So I say all this to say, we were created for connection, friendship, relationship, and love. And this doesn't have to stop because we are in quarantine. You can decide to stay connected with people you care about. So listen, stay informed and not obsessed. Take a look at the necessary updates, then unplug and de-stress. Take time doing relaxing things that you find to be fun. And last, but certainly not least, stay connected. You don't have to experience this quarantine situation alone. Reach out while you stay in. I guarantee you that there is at least one other family member or friend that is feeling isolated just like you. Be encouraged, my friends. We are all in this together. Until next time, stay safe and stay at home. So, we have come to the end of our time together today. I hope our discussion was helpful to you. I wish you positive vibes and encourage you to do you as you climb the ladder of success. If you're feeling this episode, don't forget to give me a great rating. If you're really loving this, please subscribe and join the success journey. For more encouragement along the way, follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Your Success Personally. And remember, your success by your rules. Bye-bye.